Phase 3 of Wrath Classic has hit the PTR and is well on its way to live servers, and there are way more changes coming to the game than you may have well expected. So today I'll be updating you on all the PTR happenings as well as the gameplay updates to come with Phase 3 of Wrath Classic. First up, do you remember the Heroic Plus or Titan Rune Alpha dungeons that came along with Ulduar? Well, they're being updated with the new patch to Titan Rune Beta, or I guess Heroic Plus Plus as people seem to enjoy calling them. The current changes have upped the bonus health mobs have in the dungeons from 130% to 140%, and their damage dealt from 30 to 40%. To offset this bonus, when players correctly deal with mechanics in the dungeons, they will be given some kind of a buff. Defeating mirror images in the Nexus dungeons or Violet Hold will give you a stacking haste buff. The stacking buff from the Storm Peaks dungeons will add bonuses from the Titan Keepers of Ulduar, similar to the Yogg fight, and the crowd in the new dungeon, the Trial of the Champion, will throw items onto the arena to buff or debuff players. These dungeons are keeping to the theme of being more for catch-up or for giving players a direct route to obtaining items they didn't manage to get from Ulduar yet. So what are we gonna be getting for completing a Titan Rune Beta dungeon? A new currency is what's called Sidarial Essence. As of doing this video, you get 1 Sidarial Essence from defeating the final boss of a Titan Rune Beta dungeon. Head on over to your badge vendor in Dalaran to find a new NPC called an Animated Constellation, who will offer Ulduar 10-man hard mode items in exchange for this essence, including the Algalon items. Whilst this does give you a guaranteed way to now get these items, they're not exactly giving them away. 19 essence for a Mjolnir runestone, 24 for dark matter, 38 for Fusion Blade, and all the two-hand weapons currently cost 50. I guess Dungeon World Tours are back on the menu. Who for though? Gearing alts or mains missing that one item that never drops? Then again, this does seem like a lot, but thinking back to the badge vendor on the Isle of Quel'Danas, the two-handed weapons there were 150 badges, which is still probably faster than it is to get 50 of this new essence though. Again, it is on the PTR, it could change. Either way, you can now guarantee get a runestone amongst other things, so that's pretty cool. The remaining parts of the Argent tournament will become unlocked, including the reputation vendors for either the Silver Covenant or the Sun Reavers, depending on your faction, who will offer various pets and mounts among other things, as well as the Crusaders Quartermaster inside the pavilion on the west side of the grounds. Again, more cosmetic rewards, mounts, pets, heirlooms, all that kind of stuff. All the remaining dailies will also be available too, allowing for more champion seals to be obtained daily, so you can work towards the rewards faster. Blizzard have also made some changes to how their lockout works in Trial of the Crusader. So in original Wrath, you could run 10-man normal, heroic, and then 25-man normal and heroic all within the same reset. In Wrath Classic, you can only complete one difficulty of each raid size per reset. So if you do 10-man normal, no heroic for that week on 10-man, for example. Items that before stacked between different difficulties, most notably trinkets such as Death's Verdict, will now be unique equipped. This has changed so you don't feel the need to do normal mode for that one trinket drop, and that being your entire lockout for the week. I don't think Blizzard wanted players to do 3 or 4 Trial of the Crusader per week either now, seeing as Ulduar gear item levels were buffed across the board to keep it more relevant. Blizzard have also made a change where more emblems and trophies of the Crusade will be dropping to compensate for the fact that this tier now shares lockouts. Speaking of the new raid, I have been testing it over the weekend to see how it measures up to expectations. So I don't think it's going to be much of a secret. Trial of the Grand Crusader is going to be overall a step down from the difficulty of Ulduar and is comparatively a very short tier. Perhaps that's what people are ready for though, an easier phase to gear up and prepare for the final assault on Icecrown Citadel at some point in the future. The testing I did was on 25-man heroic, and we'll see whether any changes leading up to its release are made. It still is on the PTR after all, but all the fights work just fine from a mechanical point of view, and Blizzard haven't mentioned retuning this raid at all as they did with Ulduar, so I reckon what we're getting at the moment is more or less what we're going to see on Alive. Beasts of Northrend seem like a fine opening boss, 3 separate encounters in one go, starting off with Gormok, who was mainly just a small bit of coordination on your tanks to make sure they don't get deleted. The Jormungand duo are probably the hardest part of the fight, where you're going to lose people due to their breath attack and dangerous debuffs. Finally, you have Ice Howl, who is a DPS check and also a check to see who can get out of the way of a charging Yeti. After that, we have none other than Jiraxxus, Eredar, Lord of the Burning Legion, who despite the memes is probably the easiest boss in the instance by some margin. As long as you're fast to swap to the various ads he spawns, his basic mechanics just don't really seem to do enough damage to pose a threat. After Jaraxxus, Eredar, Lord of the Burning Legion, we have arguably one of the most unique boss fights ever in the Faction Champions. I remember enjoying this one a lot back in the day, and I think I know why. I was more of a PvPer at the time, and this was the only PvE encounter where you could really put those abilities you learn there to the test. These days it's still a dangerous encounter. If you let 2 or 3 of the enemy connect on the same target, they are going to get instantly deleted. But after about 1 or 2 minutes into the fight, you can kind of already tell whether or not you've won, and then you're left with a further 3 or 4 minutes of grinding down health bars without much of a threat in sight. All the same, I'm interested to see how people min-max and speedrun this encounter though. Then there's the Twin Valkyr, which is a really fun fight. Loads of healing to do, the raid's getting a stacking damage buff, lots of cleaving. It was a bit scuffed playing with bad ping trying to goal keep the orbs on the PTR, but still solid all the same. I would say the Twin Valkyr will pose the greatest threat so far in the instance, though still not on the same level as any Ulduar hard mode. Finally, a Nubarak, who, at least on 25 heroic, is most definitely not free loot. Expect this fight to be where your progression happens in Trial of the Grand Crusader. If I had to try and compare this boss to anything in Ulduar, I would not say it's as punishing as Algalon or Yogg Zero, but I think it's more difficult than most hard mode encounters. It's probably somewhere similar to Iron Council or Mimiron hard mode. There is a ton of tank damage going out, raid-wide responsibility with the spikes in phase 2, and a race to the finish when the boss hits 30% and unleashes his leeching swarm, which rapidly drains everyone's health to heal him. All in all, there are some good encounters in this raid and a lot of great gear to get hold of. And once you start getting this place on farm, you should be done well within the space of 45 minutes too, making this a very short tier. And don't forget, if you manage a 0 wipes run of Trial of the Grand Crusader, you get an item level 272 cloak on top of a ton of extra loot from the final chest. So expect emphasis on getting clean runs down here. Next, we have some more changes, as it appears Blizzard are pushing the new Dragonfly options menu onto Classic. Seems as though a bit of a strange time to be doing this, though it's going to be something that will make Classic a little more approachable from the point of view of somebody who mainly plays retail. Saying that, there are plenty of other options features on Classic that are different already, such as there being no heirloom tab, no toy tab, mounts and companions are stored differently, no void storage, and so on and so forth. It's not necessarily a bad change or anything, and there is a search bar so you can easily find whatever you're looking for. It just seems like a odd time to implement it. Also, in case you're wondering, no, the Dragonflight UI rework where you can move around your bars and so on is not in the game. You still need add-ons for that. Onyxia will be making a return alongside the patch, and players will be able to speak to an NPC located outside of her lair to toggle the fight between the level 60 and 80 versions. On the Wrath version, she'll drop item level 232 gear on 10 man and 245 on 25 man. There's no heroic difficulty. The gear will be reminiscent of her drop table from Classic, just updated to match Wrath itemization better. There'll also be a rare chance at the reigns of the Onyxian Drake, a mount using Onyxia's model with a 310% flight speed. Finally, we have a few minor updates and bug fixes. So, as you probably know, a little while ago, someone at Blizzard started maining a Feral Druid and they pushed a buff to live where Fairy Fire would always proc clear casting, which sounds like a pretty small change, doesn't it? Well, here's DPS rankings from the start of March, which is before the buff, and you can see Feral down there not doing so hot. Here's where they are now. It turns out this was, in fact, a rather large buff. Now, Blizzard almost went back and ended up nerfing druids in other ways, but they ended up just leaving this in as is. On the PTR now, however, there is a new major glyph which is providing this guaranteed clear casting effect. So I'm assuming this will mean Feral has to drop a glyph somewhere else to make room for it. So Ferals will be losing out on some DPS somewhere else, but keeping this new Fairy Fire effect. Warriors are getting a new minor glyph too for Shattering Throw that reads, your Shattering Throw is now instant and may be used in any stance, but no longer removes invulnerabilities and cannot be used on players or player-controlled targets. Basically, Blizzard want to make applying this debuff way less clunky than it currently is. Seems as though it's an easy win for warriors who are powering up heading into their latter stages of Wrath. Dancing Rune Weapon for Blood DKs is undergoing major fixes, as it turns out it was extremely bugged and causing nowhere near as much damage as as it should have been. I guess this went under the radar because, well, not even WotLK tanks, as far as I know, spec into Dancing Rune weapon. There's also predictions that Blood DPS will be the best single target DPS spec Death Knights have by the time we're in ICC gearing. So I guess DK mains, start writing your manifesto about why you need Shadowmourne as a priority now. I'm sure the Warriors won't mind. There will also be fixes to munching, and not the kind you'll be doing as Wilfred Fizzlebang summons Jiraxxus for the 43rd time. So this is an interaction that's caused when multiple attacks land at the same time, and not all of them correctly apply their on-hit effects. Most notably, this has been affecting fire mages for a long time now, who have had to purposefully find ways to delay casts ever so slightly to ensure they're not hitting at the same time. It's pretty scuffed, to be honest, and really a bug that should have been addressed sooner, but hopefully it's fixed with a patch and you can just pyroblast happily away. And that's it for the PTR on phase 3 at the moment. Definitely a few more changes and updates than you would have expected to be coming alongside the patch. Let me know your thoughts and whether there are any other big points I missed off, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all on the next one very soon.